Good evening. I'll ask members of the public to please. Good evening. I'm calling. Members of the public, if you can't keep decorum and be quiet while the meeting is being held, I'll have to ask you to leave the room. I am now calling the County Services Committee meeting to order. I have asked J.P. Rios Stafford to lead us in prayer and pledge, and I'll turn that over to J.P. Rios Stafford.
Yes, thank you. And I've invited Reverend Jim Parrish from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fayetteville to give our opening prayer.
It's right here. Thank you, Evelyn, for this opportunity. Let us take a moment for prayer or reflection. God of many names and no names at all, divine presence of love in the human heart, in the substance of the universe that connects us all. Be with us and with this court this evening. Guide it in your greatest commandment, that of love. Love for each other and love for the world and the environment that sustains us. To live in harmony with the land as those who walked these hills ages ago, the Caddo, the Osage, and the Quapaw. A love that the divine's greatest servants modeled for us, serving the poor, the needy, the hurt, the ill. Kneeling in servitude with humble hearts, one with the people. Let us listen with open hearts to their needs, sacrificing our own desires in favor of the freedom, the compassion of love. God of many names, but the greatest is that of love. Let the court feel your gentle urge to serve the whole, to hold open a space to serve to the service of a higher love, with freedom and opportunity for all to share in. We ask this in the name of that divine spark we all share, love for one another. Blessed be. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that the agenda be approved as printed. I move that the agenda be approved as printed.
I have a motion by J.P. Wilson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And I have a second by J.P. Pond. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. First item on the agenda is Patriot Park presentation. We have Mr. Jim Petty here this evening. Mr. Petty, welcome.
Chairman Duncan, Core and Court members, thank you for the opportunity to get to share some exciting news with you guys about a project called Patriot Park, a project that had started about 2.5 or 3 years ago in the concept idea stage, and from there it has developed to what I'm going to be showing you in concept today. I think I handed out, you should have in front of you there. But first of all, again, thank you. My name is Jim Petty. My company is Strategic Realty, and we develop housing, affordable housing all over Arkansas and Oklahoma, and we're excited to be in collaboration with the county here and providing a much-needed boost to the affordable housing stock, and specifically targeting some of the units to homeless veterans and homeless other citizens as well. So we're excited and look forward to working with you guys on that. About 2 or 3 years ago, we started having some conceptual meetings. The County Veteran Services offices and others, including staff and the judge, all felt like there was a need for what we're proposing here. And so we had a number of meetings with the Veteran Services offices, with the Fayetteville Housing Authority, who also does the veterans housing vouchers, and so we started exploring options, and that's what we've got here today, with all of the funding in place. It's about a $10.3 million project, 60 units. The vast majority, about 9.8 million of that is a form of a grant, and so all of that's now in place, and so we're going to be gaining a lot faster momentum. We wanted to share with the Quorum Court, so as the news gets out and word gets out what we're doing and the excitement builds, you guys would be aware of what we're proposing here and what we're doing. So specifically, the project is going to be located on the corner of College and North, just right back behind, I think, yeah, back behind us here. And I've got a site plan, a proposed site plan. With the funding in place, we now have the engineering in full speed ahead. But this is kind of a preliminary based on what we think the site will bear. It'll have a community room for veterans and also an office, some office space for the Veteran Services Office to service the veterans that are there. And I'll pause for just a second and say it's not just for veterans. We have full belief that there will be a large portion of them will be veterans, and that's specifically related to one of the grants that makes up the entire funding of this. There will be 60 units of 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms. The rent will be ranging from $250 a unit for a 1-bedroom to $395 based on your income. And that's for a 1-bedroom. 2-bedroom range from $300 to $495, and the 3-bedroom range from $320 to $590. Obviously, if you know Northwest Arkansas, those are very affordable rents, and that's what we want to try to target with our project here. As I mentioned, the total cost is about $10.3 million, and about $9.8 million of that is made up of various forms of a grant. Specifically on the second page of the handout, this is a schematic of the building elevation for one of the buildings. The next page is the conceptual unit floor plans for the 1s, 2s, and 3s. And then a little more detail to each building, building A, and then building B is the last page there. And again, with the funding in place, we're now moving forward to complete the plans and complete the site engineering. But we're excited about the fact that it's so close to the VA hospital and the Veteran Services offices. The Veteran Services offices staff have been very helpful in pulling the concept of addressing veterans. We know that homelessness is a problem. We know that affordability is a problem, and then it's just magnified even more so with our veterans who served and defend our country. And so we're excited about blending all of that together here in Northwest Arkansas and here with the county. A couple of closing comments, and I know that having been to public meetings, there's probably lots of items on the agenda, and so I want to be brief, but I don't want to cut anything short, so I'll be glad to answer any questions, but it's just a couple of things. The funding that we have, the biggest portion of the funding did require that there be an experienced team having had experience in managing and operating this type of housing. and it made up about $9.8 million of the funding of the 10.3. And therefore, when we discussed this with the various folks at the funding agencies and within the county and the staff and the veteran services, it was determined that the best way for this to be able to move forward was for it to come under a long-term lease to the project. But for all practical purposes, it's effectively under the control of the county, and 100% reverts to the county at the end of the compliance, the grant compliance period. So I know that was a mouthful, and I tried to be brief, but I want to be respectful of your time, but I also want to fully answer any questions that you might have regarding the project.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Petty. I would ask that you email out the packet that you provided to the JPs.
Be glad to do that.
Don't mind sending that to the rest of the quorum court as well, so they
Sure.
can see. Really excited about the project. I know we had a chance to touch base, so I think my questions have been answered, but I would like to open it up to fellow JPs. So JP Rio Stafford.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Petty, for coming to talk to us. I know that I'm probably familiar to you. We've kind of talked before due to my former role on the board of the Fayetteville Housing Authority. And just had a few questions. What I think I may have missed it. What's the projected opening date?
So that's another reason why we wanted to, now that all the funding is in place, we wanted to make everyone aware. Because unfortunately, in the history, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, we get everybody excited, we get them to support, and then the funding doesn't come through. And so we wanted to make sure it was all, before we brought it to you, that it was all in place, and it is now. With that, we expect to have our engineering and architectural plans done within the next 30 days to present to the county building services for them to work through any issues with the architects and engineers. I would anticipate a ribbon cutting, and there will be a lot of folks that will want to attend from around the county and the city and the state. I would anticipate a late July, maybe August ribbon cutting with the final plans and ready to go to break ground. Probably breaking ground in September at the latest. That's the goal. Obviously, the weather determines that, but that would be our goal, to break ground, and then approximately 12 months later we would be complete.
Okay, so September of this year, potentially breaking ground, and then hopefully opening sometime in the later part of next year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
right.
And then you mentioned the compliance period, at which point it would be kind of turned over completely to the county. What would be the projected date of that, for that compliance period ending?
So the minimum compliance period is 35 years.
Okay.
However, like I said, we have done this, and it is our full intention, and we've done so far, that we will work hand in hand with county staff and especially the Veteran Services offices, and so as much or as little detail as necessary. But it is our goal to effectively this be the for all practical purposes it is, but for legal grant purposes it had to be with a experienced private sector operator and manager, but for all practical purposes, effectively the counties.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know that when I was on the Housing Authority Board, or really the board of FHA Development, Inc., which is the Housing Authority's nonprofit arm, that we voted in favor of partnering with you all, basically to be the LIHTC partner. Are those? I kind of haven't. I apologize that I haven't kept track with where that is. Is that still part of the funding of this?
So they were, in the previous director, Angela Belford, and I had talked, and she had expressed interest that the Housing Authority gain experience in the LIHTC world, and so visited with her one day about doing that so that they could. And so in that situation, it was not one of those that we had to have them. We were going to work with them irregardless because of the VASH vouchers. But with FHA development wanting to develop capacity and experience, thus the reason that you have to have experience, as I was referring to earlier, that's when I said, we work with nonprofits all over the state and Oklahoma and other states as well. And so we're perfectly fine with partnering with them to show them what we do so they could gain capacity and experience as well. So, and that is still in place.
Oh, good. Okay, that's great. That's great to know. And I know, like, this is a great project. I'm in favor of it, especially with unfortunately, the situation with the Housing Authority's nonprofit arm has had to sell off, recently to sell off the Highway Inn, which the original plan and goal with that was to provide additional VASH voucher housing and housing for veterans and things like that. But unfortunately, COVID really hit the nonprofit hard, and they've had to downsize some as a result of that. It's an unfortunate situation. So this is definitely absolutely needed.
It is most definitely, and to that point, and I shared this with the FHA staff as well. The arrangement with them, it's more like a mentor-mentee arrangement. Our company with the experience and the wherewithal that the state was looking for is the backstop behind the deal. We are using them to help them gain that capacity and experience. So we're moving forward. We don't have financial problems and issues because of the pandemic, and so anything that they might be dealing with to resolve their situation will not affect this.
Yeah,
Because the primary purpose and desire is to one, work with the Veterans Services Offices and the VASH vouchers, but two, to help them be a community partner and help them build a capacity so someday maybe they could do something like that as well.
Great, thank you. And then I had one more question, and this is more for the county judge's chief of staff. I know, to my knowledge, this is the first time that the Quorum Court or Quorum Court Committee has gotten a presentation or kind of an information about this project, even though it's been in the works for a couple of years. I knew about it because I was on the Housing Authority Board, and they're part of this project. But I'm just curious about what were the origins of this project? How did it sort of come to be, conceptualized? I know there was an RFP that got put out, and that's how Mr. Petty's company got involved. But to my knowledge, this is the first time the Quorum Court has ever been briefed on this. And why is that? And how did this whole project come to be?
Well, as you probably are aware, one of the main issues Judge Wood wanted to address when he came into office was veteran services here in the county. Our county was lacking very badly in the services that we were providing to veterans. I think we were averaging less than 20 veterans that we were serving each month prior to Judge Wood being elected. We now, I think our VSOs here, we now are up to about 300 a month veterans that we're serving. And so one of the needs that we saw with veterans was the housing issue. And so this was something, it was a concept. There's a lot of things that go into it. As Mr. Petty said, this is one of those things that, one, the county's not funding any of this, so there's not an appropriation or anything that has to be done. And with like lots of projects, this was one of those things that until we had the funding, until it was a reality, didn't want to put the cart before the horse in getting out. So because the county's not funding it, there was no ask for the Quorum Court, and so there wasn't really any need to start talking about something that could have fizzled out and never happened. And so we just wanted, I think Judge just wanted to make sure that this was a reality and not just a dream before coming out and saying, hey, here's what we've got going on.
And just to piggyback off of that, a lot of that's probably my fault too, because as the quarterback, if you will, I want to kind of temper expectations, and I can really I believe passionately in what we do in serving the low-income communities and especially the veterans. And I really wanted to make sure, because I've seen a number of these types of deals for various reasons, just everybody's excited, you got full support, and then something happens. And then, through all of this, we've weathered a pandemic and we're still moving forward. So part of that was me advocating for, let's just wait just a little bit longer before we know what, the funding looks like before we go forward. Because we did go down the path a couple of times and it ended up in a dead end and funding was not there. And so part of that was probably my fault as well for doing that.
Thank you.
JP Simons.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Petty, for your presentation. You mentioned you have 9.8 million through grants and other funding. Sorry. You mentioned you had 9.8 million of the 10.3 estimated secured already. Where are you looking for that remaining $500,000?
So, okay, good question, clarification. So the 9.8 is the grant. The other balance is a soft funding also through the state agency. So it's a 1% 35-year loan. So we have 100% of the funding in place, but 9.8 is a grant. The other one is a soft 1% loan. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate your time. Fellow JPs, are there any other questions?
So my question may be for the county judge's office, because I think this sounds like a great project and I appreciate your efforts on it. What I understand is why the county is involved at all if they have secured 100% financing. I'm confused as to why this is coming to us at all and why it originated with the county.
Because it's going to be on county property.
Okay, and
So
where's that property?
That's the old parking lot that used to be utilized by Washington Regional before they built their new facility, the empty lot that's not being used.
And don't they have a lease on that?
No, we have that.
So when was it changed? When was the lease changed?
From what we gave to UAMS, what was given to UAMS,
Yes.
we did away with the lease on all those unincorporated or unimproved properties in 2018, I think.
Okay, so have we had that property appraised?
No, we haven't. We're not looking to sell it.
Okay, well, I think it would be important because that's a county asset and it's a very valuable county asset. And I think it would be helpful for members of the quorum court to understand the value of that piece of property. Because my understanding was all those parcels were tied up in a lengthy, very low-cost lease with UAMS. And if those properties have been freed up, I think that's something the quorum court should consider as an asset. I kind of agree with JP Stafford. It's like if this has been in the works for 2.5 to 3 years, I'm really puzzled as to why the court is just hearing about it for the first time. And if it's going to be on a valuable piece of county property, I think we should have an understanding of what that asset is worth.
Okay.
So,
But I mean, it's not something that the county's selling. The quorum court doesn't have the ability to enter into contracts, as you're well aware. And so there's not really an ask for the quorum court. And again, this kind of is probably why the judge wanted to make sure we got to a point where this was actually going to happen before people that say this is a great project come up and then say, but I don't think we should be doing this because I'm not going to want to do anything that this administration does, which has been the pushback that the administration's gotten for the last 4.5 years.
well, it is a 3 branches of government process. There are 3 branches of government, not just the executive branch. I wanted to ask then why in the 2019 RFP that went out on the Patriot Park, it talked about a financial contribution of the county?
Because at the time, that was part of the consideration was an in-kind contribution such as land clearing or something like that. Since that time, We've been able to, they've been able to secure the funding that's not going to require any county workers or in-kind or anything. Every bit of it from start to finish is going to be done, and it won't be done by the county.
Forever. Grants don't usually last forever, so I'm curious about
Well,
if
at the
it's
end
gonna-
of the grant, the county has that piece of property that has a value that will have a value about 10 times more than what it is now, because right now it's just a piece of property. When the grant ends, the requirements end, the building will be owned by the county outright. And so that will be a county building that the county can then continue to provide housing or sell the building or whatever else they choose to do.
Have we obtained the necessary approvals from the city of Fayetteville to
Yes,
build within the
we've
zoning?
discussed in length with the city of Fayetteville.
Has it been approved?
Yes.
Okay. And so my last question, and this may be more appropriate for you, in terms of the use for veterans versus non-veterans, how is that going to be determined?
So we would expect, because of the numbers and the statistics that we hear, that the vast majority of them would be not only low-income citizens of the county and the city, but also veterans. But we have the flexibility, if for whatever reason, it's 20 instead of 300, then they can be non-veteran, low-income individuals. But it's all affordable housing with the preference to veterans.
There will be a preference. Okay, that's what
Yes.
because I was trying to sort of fit that in with the homeless problem in all of Northwest Arkansas, and veterans will be given a preference.
Yes, that's
Okay.
our objective.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other quorum court members like to speak on this? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Perry.
you.
Agenda item number 5, the Washington Regional Medical Center report. So this is done once a year. We're excited to hear the report from, I believe, Mr. Shackelford.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Duncan, members of the Quorum Court. I'm Larry Shackelford, and I'm the President and CEO at Washington Regional. As Chairman Duncan mentioned, we provide an annual report of our operations. That's the report that's in your packet. Also have it here on the screen as well. I will likewise try to be brief. The information I'm sharing is in the report, but happy to answer any questions. It's impossible to look back at 2020 and not talk about COVID when you look at the last 15 months and where we've come. The theme of this year's annual report is heroes. And I'm proud that Washington Regional throughout the pandemic was able to be agile, were able to develop and implement a plan. Oftentimes we think of those at the bedside, caring for patients, doctors, nurses, but if you think about our COVID unit, there were many of our team members bringing meals, cleaning, our testing center that was off-site, the countless staff giving vaccinations. And if there was ever a year that heroes was needed, it was 2020. Here's some data that we thought might be interesting for the period from March through the end of April. We had nurses manning a hotline. When the pandemic started, that hotline was manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've been able to back off that with time. During that period, there were 122,263 phone calls received, and that was a live nurse visiting with our members. During this period, we completed 64,540 COVID tests, provided care to 1,156 unique COVID inpatients. There was a time where we could not see patients face-to-face. We did televisits and have completed just under 85,000 televisits during that period of time. There was a time where visitors could not come, and we implemented a video visit so families that could have a way of interacting with their loved ones. Over 3,134 video visits in that time frame, and as of April, had administered 32,571 doses of the COVID vaccine. This is a time frame. I apologize that the print is small, but it gives you some idea of what that effort was. In Arkansas, the emergency was declared on March 11th. Here in Fayetteville, our mayor declared the emergency on March 13th. We opened our first COVID unit on March 13th. We opened an off-site testing center. That was one of the best practices, is for patients not to come into the hospital and in order to get tested. That was opened in the North Hills Medical Park on March 16th. The governor conducted his first daily press conference outside of Little Rock on March 16th, and that press conference was here at Washington Regional. One of the challenges early on was PPE and testing, and we were able to secure PPE, went to a universal masking on April 3rd. Unfortunately, by the time we got to June 8th, the second COVID unit was needed. We saw a peak when others in the state were not. Last summer, the National Guard arrived to provide us some help with that testing center in mid-July. And then you can see those efforts through our recent times. Again, one of the challenges that COVID provided was, in addition to taking care of those patients, keeping our core mission open. Part of that core mission includes our Neuroscience Institute. That institute offers the only neurosurgical intensive care unit in this area. We offer neurointerventional radiology, neurosurgery, and spine. There is one comprehensive stroke center, and that's at Washington Regional. The nearest comprehensive stroke centers outside of Northwest Arkansas are Little Rock, Tulsa, and Springfield. So you can see the area that we draw from. On top of the other things, we have been expanding our campus. In the 18 years we've been at North Hills, we have doubled the size of our campus during that period, from just under 350,000 feet to now over 700,000 feet. That most recent core renewal project was completed in 2020. We added cath labs, we added a 16-bed cardiac progressive unit, a 20-bed neurosurgical ICU, neurointerventional radiology suite, and additional 15,000 feet of lab space. In addition to our Neuroscience Institute, our Walker Heart Institute now is a 76-bed, and we provide the most comprehensive cardiac care in our region. Other centers of excellence includes our Women's and Infants Center. In 2020, there were 2,361 babies that were born at Washington Regional. We partnered with the Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank to create the first human milk bank depot in Northwest Arkansas, and partnered with Ronald McDonald House. They have a Ronald McDonald House on the top floor of our Women's and Infants Center. And even during COVID times, there was 225 families that had 983 overnight stays that were of no cost to those families. One of the projects that we're really most proud of on page 19 is our cancer support home, which has just opened. That cancer support home boasts 9,980 feet. All of the rooms are elevator access. We've basically increased from 2 bedrooms that we had on the cancer support home on Woolsey to 8 bedrooms now. Any patient who is battling a cancer diagnosis is eligible to come and receive overnight care, counseling. We have a boutique doing wigs. You do not have to be a Northwest Arkansas resident. You don't have to be a Washington Regional patient. And all of those services are delivered to community members for no cost. So with that, I'll pause and be happy to answer any questions.
I went first last time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, mine will be brief. I want to say thank you very much. Got my COVID shot there, and gives you quite a feeling of relief. And curious as far as financially, have you kind of recovered? I know that COVID took a lot out of the system, so are you recovering fairly well?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, during COVID, we were caring for very sick inpatients, and reimbursement, wasn't adequate to cover that. In addition, there was almost an 8-week period where we had to pause all non-urgent and non-emergent issues. So we did in the year in an operating deficit. Fortunately, investments in 2020 performed okay, and we were able to cover the lion's share of that operating deficit with investment income. Also, CARES Act and other funds was quite helpful. We are seeing things return in terms of volume in 2021 very nicely.
Very good. Well, also, thank you for being so progressive as far as making things so much better. I've lived here all my life, all 39 years. And seen a tremendous amount of change in the last 10 years, really have. Just so much change. And, my family's had a lot, and, we had to go all the way to St. Louis for the care that we needed for one family member. And so glad that you're increasing and growing and getting better and better and better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I wanted to, I got my vaccine there at Washington Regional as well, and wanted to thank you all for providing that service, and just say for anyone who has not been vaccinated, anybody watching at home, please get vaccinated. We really need that to happen, and take advantage of Washington Regional services or anyone else's services. I'm one of the newer JPs, so this is the first time I've been sitting on this committee since y'all have been giving these annual reports. And so my question for myself and other people watching, what % of your funding comes from the county?
0.
0, okay, all right.
And we do partner with the county. We provide nursing support for the Washington County AIDS Clinic, and we provide other support, but there's no county funding that comes to Washington Regional.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question I wanted to ask you, a little later in our agenda, we're going to be talking about some issues with the crisis stabilization unit. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Washington Regional's sort of mental health services, and then also, how and if you interact with the CSU.
So yes, oftentimes patients use the ER as their place of last resort. And so when the crisis support unit was being formed, we were very supportive of that. Providing that care in the ER is not the best place for that care to happen. So we are providing nursing support for that unit, and have really found it to be a good thing for patients that might otherwise have to get that care in the ER.
As I said, we're going to talk about this a little later in the agenda, but we're hearing that the CSU may need to, at least temporarily, have to shut down because of a funding gap. How is that going to affect what you all provide right now?
So those patients that have avoided care in the ER would likely have to come back for a period of time. And, you know, what sometimes folks don't understand in the emergency room, you know, it's worst come, first served. And so that can become frustrating. We have capacity, we try to care for everyone, but our timeliness would certainly be impacted at a time, you know, from a public health standpoint that's challenging.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Other JPs? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 6 on the agenda is County Environmental Services update. This was requested by JP Madison, and I have asked Chief of Staff Lester to give an update.
So I don't know of any specific questions, because I've not received any specific questions from JP Madison. I had received some questions from a few. I think we've received maybe 4 phone calls or emails. We used to have a HHW, which was a household hazardous waste drop-off location down at our South Campus. And granted, this all occurred before my tenure as Chief of Staff. My understanding was that the cost of operating that did not match up to the use in particular. And so we've recently gotten some calls from some people, and this has been, I mean, that was shut down almost 2 years ago, and we stopped using that facility. There still are places where people can go to drop off household hazardous waste. There's Boston Mountain's facility between Lincoln and Prairie Grove. There is, and I don't know the address, there's a place in North Springdale that takes these same items. And then recently, the city of Fayetteville has partnered with Boston Mountain, and they have a mobile unit that I think serves the city once or twice a week, I believe, for Fayetteville citizens to drop off household hazardous waste. And I don't know if that answered all the questions, but
Is all this information that you just gave available in one central place, like on the county website, or can it be put into sort of one page on the website so that people have these resources all in one convenient location?
yeah,
online?
I can ask our environmental services department to put this information if they haven't already on the website. I don't know if it's out there or not.
So
JP Madison.
my request, Mr. Chair, that this be placed on the agenda was at the beginning of 2017, when Judge Wood took office, we had a robust environmental services staff, and we provided a number of environmental services, including the drop-off location at the South Campus. Judge Wood canceled those services and contracted privately with Boston Mountain to do those, and then canceled that contract. And since then, for residents of the county, it's been very, very hard to do recycling. I have heard from people as far away as West Fork saying the South Campus Recycling Center is gone, and as county citizens, we have to go all the way out to the west end of the county, which basically means that people are not recycling and they're putting it all in the garbage. But so my questions are these. What actual services is the Environmental Services Department performing right now? I've heard that it's only on junk sites, trash dumps. Did the city of Fayetteville ask us to partner with them on a disposal initiative and we declined? And what are the county's priorities in terms of providing environmental services, since it seems like we're doing so few?
Well, currently we have 2 officers, and we do focus mainly on illegal trash dumps and investigations into illegal trash dumps. You know, the quorum court, as you're aware, isn't willing just to fund unlimited everything anybody wants. And so when any administration comes in, you start prioritizing the things that you want. And I think with Judge Wood's administration, his first and foremost priority, although it may not affect some people that live inside city limits, we do have county roads. We have a lot of them. We have 1,500 miles of county roads that have to be kept up, that we've got to maintain so that fire trucks and ambulances can get to some people
Mr.
out.
Chair,
And
I'm not
excuse
sure
me,
how
ma'am, are you
roads
answering
are
my?
responsive to environmental services questions. I mean, nobody cut the funding for environmental services.
You asked me what the priorities were. I'm trying to tell
For
you. Would you like
environmental
to hear them?
services.
Well, I'm explaining it to you.
I've
Would you like
asked-
to hear?
But you're talking about roads and paving
You're
roads.
right.
I'm asking about environmental services provided to our county residents.
JP Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate
So
it.
I'm sorry, is he not going to answer any questions? Are you
I've
asking?
attempted to, and you haven't, and it's not what you want, so I'm not, there's nothing else for me to tell you.
You're just really showing, you're really showing what it's like to be a member of the quorum court to all these people. I've asked, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect.
Thank you, JP
Environmental
Madison.
services are a county service, and I have had complaints from citizens in my district as well as citizens in other districts, including JP Wilson's district, who have said there is a lack of environmental services that is being provided to county citizens, and I think that we should be able to talk about those without talking about paving roads. I mean, can we not get an update? Are we providing any recycling services as a county to our county citizens?
No, we're not.
Okay.
And as far as I'm aware, we haven't since the administration came here, because that was a household hazardous waste. It wasn't a recycling drop-off.
Okay, well then are we providing have we replaced those services?
They're still available.
But are we providing those
No.
services?
Yes, they're being provided by Boston Mountain Solid Waste, which we are a part of.
Well,
So yes,
but we used to have a contract with them to do it at the South Campus. We don't do that anymore.
that's correct.
Okay, and Judge Wood made the decision to outsource that and then made the decision to cancel that contract.
That's correct.
And previously, those services had been provided in-house,
That's correct.
and we're not doing them anymore.
No, Boston Mountain's doing it for us.
Are we
we-
paying them to do it?
We partnered with them for a long time. Yes, they've used some of our equipment. That's part of the deal.
Okay, do we have a current contract with them?
I do not know.
You're the county attorney, and you don't know if we have a contract with Boston Mountain Solid Waste
You're
District.
exactly right. We have thousands of contracts. I don't know exactly what that contract is, if it's still running or if it's ended.
Okay, well, I think everybody now knows the state of environmental affairs in Washington County. It's non-existent.
JP Dennis, did you have any questions or comments?
Well, I had a couple of comments if I could. First of all, thank you to Judge Wood and the county for having the county cleanup. That was provided by the county, and you could take your, almost anything that you wanted to Boston Mountain in Tawnytown or in Prairie Grove and drop it off for free. And I find that that's a great time to really clean up the county. I mean, I always try to find something besides my own to take with me, and you don't have to drive 200 or 300 yards away from your house, and you'll find it. If you look for it, throw it on the trailer and take it on out there. It's a great time to clean up, and that is provided. So I think that's a great thing that we do. And as far as out at Prairie Grove, they also take the environmental hazardous products from us. And I would encourage you, I mean, you know, used to, Fayetteville's the only place you had to shop, the only place you had to do things, and so everything was centered around Fayetteville. Now there's things in the rest of the county. So Fayetteville, feel welcome to come to Prairie Grove. We'd be glad to have you. And while you're there, you can enjoy downtown, you can enjoy the park. There's a lot of things that you can enjoy on your way and do some shopping and drop your hazardous material off. So anyway, come see us. We'd love to have you. Thanks.
Thank you, JP Dennis. JP Rio Stafford.
Just one more question, just to kind of circle back to the recycling services or the lack thereof in the county. Is this something that we can move back to where we were at least, previously through some appropriation from the county? Is there some you know, does the quorum, is this an action the quorum court can take to get this rolling again?
The quorum court can provide funding, but the quorum court can't spend the money. And so right now, you know, that's a question for Judge Wood because his priority is county roads, which is his main priority. And so as I was trying to explain before I was interrupted, so no, that's a Judge Wood question. If Judge Wood wants to put more money into the environmental services side, he may, but I think that he has other ideas of where that money is best spent.
Well, I mean, you're Judge Wood's chief of staff. You know, I mean, I would think you'd know the answer.
I just told you the answer. I mean, I can't make that decision. I'm telling you, I don't think Judge Wood is interested in spending more money in that area. I think he is interested in looking at spending that money in other places that he feels like is more needed in the county.
All right, thank you.
Item number 7, the Crisis Stabilization Unit. Chief of Staff Lester, please help us with that one.
So as a lot of you are aware, the CSU goes back to really 2017 when we made a big ask of the governor's office and the legislature. It was a joint effort. There were a lot of people from the circuit judges to the sheriff's office to the county judge's office and local mental health providers, and we made a big pitch. And as you're aware, initially the crisis stabilization units that were funded, they were only going to fund 3 in Arkansas. And those have pretty much been predetermined in Jonesboro, Pulaski County, and Sebastian County. And because we did such a good job at presenting what we could offer and what we could do, Washington County, the governor made an exception and gave Washington County one of these. It took a while to get that up and running. We built that, we being the 4 locations and county attorneys and Department of Health, DHS, Department of Behavioral Health, spent a long time literally creating what this model was going to look like. There were some ideas of how some other states had done similar things, but we had to make it work under the guidelines in Arkansas, so we built that up. Anyways, fast forward, and over the last couple of years, there have been funding issues, and the funding issues were the funding coming from the state. We were operating the CSU. Basically, the county was acting as a pass-through. We provided the building, we provide a lot of the services, we pay the phone bill, we pay the light bills. You know, we started out with helping purchase what they needed and providing computers and everything they needed other than the personnel. And our contract and agreement with Ozark Guidance was that they would provide the personnel to operate the CSU. And as you know, it's a 24-hour facility. There's a requirement that a doctor, a licensed mental health, actual MD doctor, is at least on call at all times. There's licensing requirements regarding how many nurses you have to have, how many staff you have to have. And so we were operating, or the CSU was operating at about $133,000 a month. It's a little over, I think, our funding. I can't remember anyways. So that $133,000 a month is what it was costing. The last couple of years, the legislature or the governor, I'm not really sure who, the funding became more of an issue, and getting funding was an issue. We had put in invoices. Our grants department is the one that was sending the documentation to Little Rock requesting funding. Funding wasn't coming in. There would be months at a time where there would be no funding, and then we'd get a big check to cover back months, and it was literally like pulling teeth. I mean, it was a constant ask. Recently, the legislature or the governor's office or whomever made the decision that they were going to cut that $133,000 a month funding down to $50,000 a month. That was a discussion. That was not final necessarily. Then they talked about, well, we're going to re-up it to $90,000 a month. And as of Friday, that wasn't final. And so Ozark Guidance, our partner in that, said, you know, we can't keep going down this road not knowing if we're going to have funding or not. And so in May, they exercised their 30-day option to let the county know that they would not be providing services. Now, they're still providing some services in Jonesboro. Jonesboro started later than we did, and so they still have a little bit more funding. I think they have enough funding to get them through the end of the year. But at that point, my understanding is unless more funding comes from the state or Jonesboro is able to fund it somehow, then they will, I don't think Ozark Guidance is interested in continuing that. So when this happened, the judge reached out to a couple of the other providers. This isn't, it's not a facility. It wasn't even with Ozark Guidance, it wasn't just like they could just come in and open the doors and start. There are a lot of special rules for CSUs that don't apply to their facility in Springdale or their facilities across the state. The other two, of the 3 or 4 CSUs, Ozark was providing services to 2 of them. UAMS is providing services in Pulaski County, and then Western Guidance and Counseling is providing services in Sebastian County. Judge Wood reached out to Western Guidance and UAMS and asked if either of them would be interested in partnering with us. The reason for that being is they're already licensed for a CSU, which is different than just normal behavioral health licensing. So we have been, the judge has been working with those groups, and we think we're going to have a good partner with that. It's not final yet because the funding issue and the funding mechanism is not final, but it was going to allow us to, it'll allow the minimum amount of downtime for our CSU if we were to go with another, and there's other companies that we've reached out to, other local behavioral health that are interested, but there's a whole lot that goes into it. It's not just as easy as saying, hey, we'll take this on. And so they're not 100% sure that they can or that they want that added to it. So we are working right now. We hope to shortly have an announcement that we have a provider to come in. There will most likely be 2-3 weeks that our CSU is empty, waiting for that provider to get some staff to get in and kind of pick up where we left off. And until that time, we have talked to and worked with Sebastian County, who is willing to take anyone that we need to send to a CSU. Sebastian County will be willing to accept those.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've talked to both Ozark Guidance and the governor's office about this situation. I understand both of their positions and where they're coming on this. Ozark Guidance, obviously, as a small business owner, I understand they're a private company, and so you can't sustain huge accounts receivables, for a big amount of time. And during this period that they weren't getting paid from the state and the whole uncertainty around the funding, I understand their position in pulling out of this. On the other side, I talked to the governor's office. I understand that, basically their reasoning that they're telling me for why there was this big gap in funding and everything else was because of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, the whole budget got thrown into disarray during COVID. And so they admitted they were not paying things out in a timely manner. And that they still haven't figured out what the new funding is going to be because they lowered it too much, I guess, for everybody. And I still don't understand why that happened. But I guess my general question is, all these discussions have been, they've all known about this. All these discussions have sort of been going on in the background. And again, just like with Patriot Park, going on for a couple years without us really knowing about it, and the environmental services contract being canceled without us really being alerted to it. Because some of this was COVID related, I feel like that if us as the quorum court had known about this, if we had been alerted to this sooner, we could have used some of the CARES Act money potentially as a bridge, maybe with Ozark Guidance, to keep this place open and running until the next provider came in. And I don't understand why there is this kind of thread of keeping things so close to the vest. Constantly, we've seen this. I feel like it's a pattern with multiple things we've seen on this agenda of a culture of secrecy in a way, and I don't understand it. And in this case, we could have helped.
I don't think that there was the issue with the pandemic and the funding had not been cut until recently. I mean, so there was a lot of talk about funding and what was going to happen. This was something we addressed early on with the governor's office, and getting into this, our fear was that we would get into a project and the governor's office would cut the funding, or we would lose funding. And, you know, I certainly understand where you're coming from, but like J.P. Madison said, there are 3 branches of government, and this is not the legislative branch of government's decision-making power. And so I don't really, it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. We're being told about it because action is being done, and there is funding. We even told Ozark Guidance that we knew we were getting $46 million that can be used specifically for this. We can fund the CSU up till 2026, I believe, with that funding without a problem. But they were not interested in that because after that time, then what happens? After that time, then what happens? Which is what their frustration was not with the county. Their frustration was with the state. Ozark Guidance has been a wonderful partner for us. They've done an amazing job. We have the utmost respect for them and wish them well, and certainly understand their reasoning for looking at getting out of the situation.
You know, I talking about the different branches of government, I understand maybe, you know, all right, you don't necessarily have I guess you feel you don't have a responsibility to be transparent with our branch of government.
I think
but
you're
there's the
misusing the
public
word
as well.
transparency.
There's
I mean, that's been,
being
I think that's a
transparent with the public.
misnomer that's been out there. There's not been a lack of transparency.
Well, I'll just say.
It's like the judge coming in and saying, why aren't you doing your job as the legislature? Well, it's our job, so.
Well, I'll just say that there were rumors about this swirling around on the internet, you know, for a couple weeks now, and we didn't really get any solid information until Tom Sissom's article in the Dim Gazette came out over the weekend. You know, and you know that's unfortunate. Just wanted to move on to just a couple points that I got from talking to the governor's office. There are ways when we get the American Rescue Plan funds that potentially they could be used to help with this, possibly. One thing they mentioned, crisis intervention training for the sheriff's officers and other law enforcement officers would cost about $3,500 to $7,000 for 30 officers. Pretty small amount of that $46 million that we're going to get. You know, and so I think that you know, some things that we could look at. ARP money could also potentially be used to develop a sobering center, which is something that we may need in this county.
Moving on to agenda item number 8. I had 2 requests from different JPs, from JP Rio Stafford and JP Ussery around buildings and grounds and property within the county. So I thought it would be appropriate to ask Chief of Staff Lester to give us an overview of those properties so the court can be educated on that. So I'll ask Chief of Staff Lester to address the court.
And naturally, as I sit here, my spreadsheet is sitting on my desk. We keep an assessment of our county buildings, and I didn't know, you had mentioned J.P. Rio Stafford having an assessment. Were you wanting like an independent assessment from some outside entity, or just wanting to know where our buildings are within our own system?
Where our buildings are within our own system, and what I generally had in mind was, you know, over in the Personnel Committee, one of the things that we're doing as an ongoing thing is talking to the different elected officials basically about their personnel needs, you know, and getting with them one-on-one individually. And so I imagine something similar to that with the different elected officials about the building that you're in, what issues you're seeing, what may need to happen. I know that, you know, facilities is all under the purview, you know, they're almost, you know, the elected officials are using these buildings that are essentially all under buildings and grounds, which is under the county judge. But you know, my idea is to get a broad overview of what's happening in these buildings because, again, going back to the American Rescue Plan funds that we're going to get, some of that could be used for, you know, problems maybe with these buildings. And I'd love for us to just have a dollar amount handle for our budgeting purposes as well, of knowing, you know, what problems are happening in our facilities and what is it going to cost to fix those problems.
As the American Rescue Plan money goes, I do not believe we're going to be able to use any of that money for any infrastructure. And that's kind of, I'll tell you, all of you, kind of so you'll understand, we get these money and Congress passes these bills, it's almost like with the rental assistance. It's great, the president will sign off on it, but then we have to wait for like the Department of Treasury to come back and give us guidelines, and they trickle these guidelines down. And so we got some guidelines early on, and there was a lot of talk about what you could or couldn't do. That has now changed a little bit. We've gotten the final rule, and since then, we've gotten another update on the final rule, which is like another 150 pages of them trying to explain, and they don't really say, here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. It's kind of in broad terms of ideas and things, and so we do not believe that we're going to be able to utilize the American Rescue Act money on any infrastructure and upgrade our buildings, which would be great, but that's not going to be an option for us. And so as far as the buildings are concerned, this building right here was built in the early 80s. It has the original roof on it that it had when it was built. This building is in need of a new roof. We've been fortunate to not have any issues in this building for since we got it. The county moved into this building in the 90s. It was utilized by a oil and gas company, I think, and a bank until that time. And so for this building, we have some leak problems on some of our windows that we've been working. I plan on, in the budget request, putting all this out. Hey, here's what we want. Here's what we're asking. Here's some of our capital improvements that we're looking to make. The judge's administration has looked for the last 4 years at really looking at cutting budgets and shrinking our budget because we didn't have a big surplus of money, and we were trying to figure out ways to increase our emergency funds. So this year, we're going to be looking at laying out some capital improvement projects and allowing the quorum court to say, hey, this is what we want to fund, and these are the things we don't want to fund. So starting with this building. This building's in pretty good shape except for the roof, and maybe some window sealing that needs to go on there. We have a critical issue at our courthouse annex. The reason for that is last year there was a big hailstorm that came in, and it damaged that roof pretty extensively. The problem is that roof, the way I understand it, it's almost like the top of it's almost like a pool liner, right? It's kind of a thin line that's kind of what was keeping it out. And then it's got stuff on top of that, so it's hard to pinpoint where the holes are from the hail or whatever's happened up there to know exactly what's going on, which is the extent of why, we've tried to patch, and there just keep being holes. And so there's major leaking in that building. The county has submitted a $3.3 million claim to our insurance provider on the damage to the roofs that we received from the hail damage. And as it stands right now, we're putting pressure. We're trying to get something figured out. Another issue with that, because of that $3.3 million claim, our insurance is going to double, if not triple, what we've been paying because of that claim. We looked at rescinding that. I inquired about rescinding that insurance claim, saying we would pay that out of our pocket, out of our emergency fund, so that we could get insurance at a better rate. And as it goes with insurance companies, it doesn't matter. Your rates are still going to be up. And this is something that sticks with us for 10 years. It's so bad that we reached out to try to get some prices on some other insurance, like through the Association of Counties, and they said they would not allow us to get on their insurance because everybody else's insurance in the state would go up because of us. It's bad. It's one of those things that, it's insurance. So anyways, with that being said, we are waiting and trying to get that money and that's our biggest priority, is getting that roof fixed. We certainly could come and the quorum court could appropriate money and we could fix it, but that may cause us to have issues with our claim. It may cause them to deny our claim. So that's where we are on that building. That's one of the issues. The other issue that has recently arisen in that building is the elevator. The elevator has had problems, I guess, since we purchased that building from the original owner and builder of that building. My understanding from talking to staff that's been around for a long time that building has had its share of issues with the elevator. Recently, what happened is when the pandemic hit and we shut down and the court shut down, we had no one going into that building through the front doors. And no one, so in the public defender's office, who's on the second floor, didn't have any of their clients coming up. They were able to do everything remotely. So their staff, because they park in the back, they have an access to get into a back door and go upstairs. And so there wasn't any use of that elevator. At some point during that time, which was from March of last year to about May of this year, something happened and the power tripped on that elevator. And we know this because the elevator guy, when we were informed about it, went out to look at it, see what was going on. And the breaker had tripped. So he realized that something happened. It caused the backup battery to kick on. Well, the backup battery was on and on, no telling how long, and it ran dead. So initially, that was the issue. We got everything fixed. They came out. They said everything's good. The elevator still didn't work. So they came back in. And what we've learned is, prior to the county purchasing that building, the original, the company that put that is called a Kone, K-O-N-E, and they're out of Tulsa. At some point prior to the county purchasing that building, based on what Otis, who was servicing our elevators for us, said, they somehow hardwired around the emergency brake on the elevator. And so now the system won't work because you've tried to go around the emergency brake. I don't understand a lot of it. So now the issue is we have got Kone coming to look at it and tell us how this happened and what needs to happen. And the big issue is it a matter of pulling the entire elevator out and replacing the elevator because of it, or is it something that we can actually somehow fix? But it's not very assuring, and it has passed every single elevator test that has been performed on it. All elevators are inspected regularly. They test the emergency brake system, so the emergency brake system was working. But because something about the wiring and overriding it, since we fixed the other things, it doesn't know to tell itself that it's okay, and so it's a big issue, and the brakes may have to be replaced. I think they're like $90,000 to replace the brakes. There's 2 brakes on an elevator. There's the regular and then the emergency brake. So while it passed all of its tests, there was this issue, and now we're trying to get to the bottom and figure out exactly what is going on with that and then what the fix is going to be. And at this point, we just don't know. And it is a problem. It's problematic. There's not much we can do about it because we can't make the elevator operate if the computer system won't tell it to operate. That's kind of where we are on that.
And that was just to say, that building and those 2 problems were kind of the big issue that kind of
Sure. And those
precipitated this whole discussion, especially because the public defender is up on the second floor of the
Right.
building, and we've heard secondhand that some of their files have gotten damaged from the leaky roof and things like that. And of course, they're the defense of last resort, for poor folks who are, having to go through the court system.
Right, and that's one of the newest buildings that the county owns, or the newest building that the county owns. So it's problematic, yes. I've had the records pulled from all the times buildings and grounds have gone out. They've tried to locate those leaks. They've tried, pretty much everything except putting a big, almost, and not really a tarp, but something tarp-like all the way across and sealing it down until we can fix that is the only thing they can think of, instead of just a new roof. But a new roof is what's going to have to happen. Again, I guess it gets to the point of either we do it ourselves and risk losing $3.3 million. Granted, it would cost us a lot less than that because this is the insurance company. But we have been in touch with them. Our insurance advisor, Nelson Driver, who helps us with all of our insurance, is on top of this. He's been working with them. He's been staying on them. And so the reason that it went so long is the 2 teams from the insurance, from the appraisers to the adjusters or whatever that had to get together with COVID, never could mesh their schedules, and so they didn't come for several months. I don't know. Again, I don't really operate in the insurance world, so I'm not sure exactly how that all happens. But that's where we are on that. Our historic courthouse, as a lot of you know, we did a massive renovation. The county did several years ago on that. In 2004, I want to say, they put in a new HVAC system. And this was the first, it was I have it, forget what it's called. But it was the first of its kind in Arkansas. And systems are utilized a lot in European countries, and when they are installed properly, they work flawlessly. There's one not too far from here in Oklahoma. Some big manufacturing company has one, and the guy that there are three people licensed in the state of Arkansas, technicians to work on these types of HVAC units. He says that he goes over to that once a year just to run some tests. Never had a problem in years that they've been operating this. When they installed the one here at the courthouse, they did not install it. It was not installed properly, which causes it to have leaks. It will forever have leaks unless we replace that system. Replacing that system requires us pulling all of the tubing out of the walls. And as you know, because it's a historic building, it has to be all put back a special way. It's not like just going in and fixing. So it's a huge undertaking to go in and either repair the ductwork that's in the walls or to pull it out and put a new system in. And so I'm talking multi-million, $2-3 million to have something like that done to fix the leaks at that courthouse. I was told that, I've seen the maintenance area for the people to get up into and look at it. The opening's about this big, not big enough for somebody to get in. So anytime they have to go in and actually fix something, they have to cut a hole in the roof and go in that way. So just problem after problem after problem. We spend anywhere from $30,000 to $90,000 a year on that air conditioning unit, because there's one guy that is with Multicraft that we contract with who is certified, and that's the only guy. There's two other in the state, but only one up here, and that's it. They can work on it because of what it is. So that's kind of an issue that we're having with that building, with the heat and air. That one gives us problems year-round. Other than that, our county buildings are in pretty good shape. The Armory building that we've leased to parole and probation, it probably is due, and the parking behind it is due for a new roof as well. At our South Campus facilities, those buildings are all in really good shape. We're not having any major issues. We've got our solar farm down there that's running and saving us a ton of money at our JDC. Right now, as a matter of fact, and I don't know if I had that on here or not, we got to a point with down to like critical staff levels with JDC, and what we found out was over about the last 10 years, because staffing JDC is very difficult. The sheriff hires a detention officer to come in to work the jail, and it's a stepping stone to then go to the enforcement side. We don't have that with JDC. With JDC, though, there are certain requirements that detention officers have to have that don't really apply to adult detention because they're juveniles. And so for years, and I'd worked 10 years in juvenile court before coming to the county, so that's at least 14, 15 years, I've known about the juvenile courts or the juvenile JDC staffing issue. It's been an issue. It was a well-known issue. Because of that, we hadn't been able to get everybody trained on everything they needed to do. And so Judge Wood, in talking with Judge Warren and Judge Zimmerman, we shut down or closed our JDC for 2 weeks so that our staff is getting fully trained. Everybody will be fully trained. And all of our juveniles have all been transported. We're housing them at other facilities and transporting them back and forth for court. Our buildings and grounds have gone in there. We've got painters in there. They've gone in. They've removed, there was a ton of graffiti. They've gone in. They're painting, getting it all set. They're going to do a really good clean on that. And then once we reopen, which will be, they'll start reopening this weekend, then everything will be like new. New walls, new paint. We'll have taken care of a lot of the issues. Anything that was broken, we repaired some of our security cameras that we have to have in there. And so that building's in good shape as well, other than we need to look to expand our juvenile court area because Judge Warren's here in the annex, and our detention is down, and so it's a big issue for transporting juveniles. There's a lot that goes in that's different about juvenile court than is adult court because of, it's all sealed files and stuff like that, and there's not much parking at our annex, and so that was never the intention. And we honestly thought the American Rescue Plan money was going to allow us, since we were working on adding on to the juvenile court center, adding another courtroom, and then we stopped because of COVID. We thought that the American Rescue Plan money was one way we can go back in and get that done. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. There's another potential bill, as you know, coming out that is on just for infrastructure. And so we think that if that ends up passing and comes down in due time, that will allow us to take care of some things. But, you know, we're certainly not waiting on that to fix some of these issues that we have. We'll fix those issues now because especially that roof at the South Campus or the South Annex Courthouse, it's got to be repaired. And so everything else other than that, our buildings are in pretty good shape. You know, we just, again, some old roofs that need to be repaired. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. And folks watching at home, tell your congresspeople to support the infrastructure bill.
Thank you, Chief Staff Lester. Moving on to agenda item number 9. I'm sorry, JP Madison.
Thank you. I've been very concerned about the condition at the courthouse annex. It's my understanding that the public defender's office has been without air conditioning for the entire month of June. In addition, the elevator not working was reported on March 10th, 2021. And just to magnify what a problem this is, there was a client of the public defender's office who's in a wheelchair who climbed up the stairs to be able to meet with his attorney. Another attorney recently had to ask for a continuance in a criminal case because the client is in a wheelchair and cannot meet with the public defender assigned to that case. So I understand that problems happen, but we have county citizens in need of services and they need an elevator, and the Americans with Disabilities Act requires them to have an elevator. I understand that there's sometimes difficulties with insurance, but the insurance claim on the roof damage was filed in November 2020, but there were 8 leaks reported well before that. Leaks in January of 2020, February of 2020, twice in May of 2020, once on July 29th, 2020, 2 times in September 2020, once in October 2020. An insurance claim wasn't filed until November. So I understand that it's not a building that we built. It's a building that the prior administration chose to buy because we needed room for a judge. But we owe it to the people that are housed in that building to do a better job. They need air conditioning. Our citizens need an elevator. And the people who work in that building deserve to work in conditions that are not moldy and wet and disgusting and could make people sick. So I hope we get our act together and fix that one. Thanks.
I wouldn't disagree. The administration wouldn't disagree with any of that. It's real easy to sit here and poke at what should be done, but actually doing things is what has to be done, which is what is being done. And unfortunately, we don't have a magic wand to wave and everything fix immediately. And so I know there's an issue with the air conditioner at that building. It's air conditioner, kind of, we'll have them go down or go out. Not the entire building has not been out without air conditioning. It's just kind of spotty on that system as well.
Sorry, I haven't.
It does tend to be my office every day, I'm just saying.
JP Stafford.
Sorry, I just had kind of one more point. I know that this is kind of a decision that's up to the chair, just like with the personnel committee. But if we want to go through and go through as the county services committee and talk to the other elected officials about what they're seeing and what their needs are, that was my original idea and intent of asking to put this on the agenda.
Thank you. The county judge oversees the buildings and grounds, so I'll defer to the county judge. If he wants to allow that, then I'm welcome to have them come before the court. We'll move on to item number 9. I know this is a hot topic, and emotions run high on things like this, and so I ask that we have respect for each other this evening. And if we can't do that, I've got the sheriff's deputies that I will have ask for you to please exit the courthouse if we can't respect each other.
Let's all stay calm, but we have the cops. Just
exactly my point there. So thank you for following that. And with that, this resolution was proposed by JP Deacon. So the resolution is declaring that Washington County is a pro-life county, and I'll have JP Deacons introduce that.
Thank you, JP, Chairman Duncan, and I want to voice my appreciation for the county service members hearing this resolution. So, I think the arguments surrounding abortion have been pretty well publicized at all levels of our government and in our society for many years. And sure, this debate tonight encompasses a lot of those arguments, but it's about so much more. And let me try to explain my heart and my motivations with working with you guys as stakeholders, both on this committee and in the public, and with organizations all around our county about why this resolution is being brought forth. First, I'd like to say that I applaud our state legislature and their efforts over the last few years in making Arkansas the #1 pro-life state in the nation. Now it's our turn to make, and I feel now it's our turn to make our voices heard at local levels. Number one amongst those is, even this last legislative session, Act 392 was passed by our state legislature, and that affirmed a right that municipalities already had, and that's to voice their opinions through resolutions and specifically on pro-life issues. But if you were to look to that act up, I would like to specifically call your attention to Section 1, Item 3C. And that section reads, "It is the duty of state and local government to protect the inalienable right to life of every person within their representative jurisdiction." I convict myself of not bringing this forth sooner. Maybe I'd gotten a little lazy and comfortable in this debate. There are a lot of self-reflection to be had there, but we had a federal administration under President Trump that was willing to stand for the unborn. Now we have a different administration that is quite the opposite. We hear all kinds of talk and debate of doing away with the Hyde Amendment, which prevents taxpayer money from funding abortions. In just the last few weeks, members of the national leadership refused when asked to affirm that a 15-week-old baby in the womb is a human being, and that appalls me. Those beliefs and that leadership are not consistent with the values and morals and beliefs of Washington County or Arkansas as a whole. We've already seen a lot of feedback about this issue. Not surprising, one of the common arguments we see is that local government is not in a position to consider or pass these types of resolutions. And maybe even as soon as a couple years ago, I might have gave some merit to that argument. But at this point in time, I couldn't disagree more. We have an obligation to represent and be a strong voice for those who sent us here. While social issues...
Removed from the courtroom.
All of us?
Yes, all of you.
Voting of women will be your demise.
JP Deacons, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While social issues might not have risen to the eye of this
I'm sorry,
court in the
point of order.
past, we now have the backdrop, an example of American Rescue Plan funds. Anyone who reads those...
JP Deacons, I'm sorry, there's a point of order. JP Stafford.
Point of order, I just wanted to clarify, what do our rules say about the 3 minutes? Because I think that is what some members of the audience are objecting to.
So the public
Why does he get more than 3 minutes?
Quiet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can we have one of the sheriff's deputies in here, please?
Mr. Chair.
Will you answer the lady?
Thank you. The individual on the front row in the black shirt, can you please have her removed? We've asked to keep order and to respect each other, and if we can't do that, I'll have to ask you to be removed. Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
The 3 minutes is typically is for public comment. We don't typically do that with the introduction of ordinances. In the past, it's just kind of let JPs that introduce something kind of give their rationale or why they're doing it. And then the JPs have 5 minutes each to speak. But the public comment is set at 3 minutes.
JP Pond?
Move to suspend the rules and allow an extended time for the sponsor of this ordinance to continue his presentation.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And I heard a second by JP Dennis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? JP Dennis, or I'm sorry, JP Deacons, rather, please continue.
Thank you, Chairman Duncan. Back to the American Rescue Plan, I think anybody that reads those initial stipulations and instructions on how those funds can be sent sees an effort by the federal government to exert its force on local governments. And I'm afraid a lot of that spending is being directed at social issues. Who's to say nonprofits promoting only abortion could not apply for those funds and receive some of them at any level of government? So the very people who caution us from this debate.
Pastor Clinton, I ask that you please respect JP Deacons. Sheriff's Deputy, do you mind removing Pastor Clint? Thank you. JP Deacons, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the very individuals that caution us from this debate have and will invite us to so many other social debates in the near future. This resolution is not about taking decisions away from women.
So just for the record and for the public record, they removed the person from the room, but before that they removed a woman because JP Deacons, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is not about taking decisions away from expectant mothers or families who may face a multitude of potential crises in their pregnancies. It is quite the opposite. I have said it many times, this region is a blessed region. There are so many great nonprofit organizations and volunteers throughout this county who are doing hard work to make sure expectant mothers and families have the support networks they need. I plan on highlighting those organizations and their missions in the coming weeks and at the full quorum court meeting so that we can continue to learn and promote these organizations. They work to make sure families have the support, whether it be financial, childcare, counseling, mentorship, to make the decisions that are best for them and take away the pressures that might force them to make a decision that is irreversible and may carry with it negative impacts for the rest of their lives. Let's support them in choosing life. We can't change federal law. If a mother decides to have an abortion after receiving this support, that is within the law and with her right within the law right now. But we can voice as a majority of the county, as representatives of our constituents, that we want them to choose life. We can deliver a succinct message and plow fertile ground in this county so that our organizations and citizens can work that ground to harvest benefits for years to come for everyone, and including and especially for the unborn child. We owe it to the mother and the baby for all resources to be studied and exhausted before someone feels the need to terminate a human life through the abortion of a pregnancy. I ask for your support on this resolution, and I look forward to working with each of you as we learn more about this critical issue and the organizations involved in promoting life. I ask that you pass this to the full quorum court, and I thank you for your time this evening.
Order. Do I hear a motion from one of the JPs on the committee?
I move the acceptance of this resolution and passing it on to the full quorum court.
JP Wilson makes a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
JP Pond with a second. Thank you. Now I'll open it up to members of the committee to make comments. JP Pond.
I've lived in Washington County all but 4 years of 68 years. And I've been some other places in the world, and there are not people anywhere in the world more caring and compassionate, considerate than the most of the folks of Washington County or Northwest Arkansas. And I do, the thing that keeps coming to mind that about this issue is, and and I don't intend to argue with anyone, and I don't expect everyone to agree with me, but there is no human being more pure, more innocent, or defenseless than the unborn child, human being. Thank you.
JP Rio Stafford.
Yes, I had a couple questions for the sponsor of the ordinance. JP Deacons, if he's still here. Am I allowed to ask him questions?
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. I was just curious, before bringing this forward, are you aware of how many providers of abortion services are in Washington County?
Yes. 0.
0, yeah.
And that's the way I think we would want to keep it in Washington County, because I believe that's the faith and the beliefs of the citizens of Washington County.
And you were first elected in 2018, and
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You'll have to repeat it.
you were first elected to the Quorum Court in 2018,
I was elected in 2018, yeah.
and at the time that you were elected to the Quorum Court, how many abortion service providers were there?
I believe there was one.
There was one, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
back then. So when there was one provider, no ordinance. When there's
But you have to understand my
resolution-
intent. I'm not really worried about the quantity of the providers, and I want there to never be an abortion provider in Washington County solely to promote abortion, because I want people to choose life. That's the goal.
Have you requested a financial impact analysis of the financial impact that this resolution might have?
No.
Okay. I would like to move to lay this ordinance on the table pending a financial impact analysis.
There's a motion on the floor. And then do you have a time frame on that, JP Stafford?
It would be until the completion of a financial impact analysis.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Are there any other comments from members of the committee? JP Pond.
I'd like to, for the committee and the people listening, to recognize and remember that this is not an ordinance. It is a resolution. It's non-binding, and therefore it does give us all the right, a right to agree to disagree with one another in a respectful, calm way, and conduct ourselves as ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
JP Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respect your right to feel the way that you feel, and I don't think we should take that away from you. Well, I'm sorry, I'm kind of deaf and can't hear you. So also, you'll have a chance in a minute. I just wanted to share a story, and I feel like I would be wrong, but if I don't share it. But, we all have our reason why we feel certain ways. But my daughter was pregnant. She went in for what, a lot of young people call the reveal party. That's when you get to know what sex the baby is. Then you have a party and it's blue or it's pink or whatever like that. She went into the doctor, and of course, that's not what the test is for. They don't do a test to tell you what kind of party to have. And she went in to have a test, and they looked at her and they said, and I won't use her name because she'll get harassed just like I've been harassed. You know, and just where you know how far it goes, you ever receive a death threat? Plenty of times, sir. Okay. Well, I have too. I have too. And so it's not a pleasant feeling. But she was 24 weeks along, and they said, I won't say her name, your baby has spina bifida. And you have 3 options. Number 1 option is to abort it right away. Number 2, you can do surgery after the baby is born, and most likely she will be paralyzed the rest of her life. Or number 3, you can have in vitro surgery. And what that amounts to is being twice born. They do a C-section and laid the baby out, all except for her head stayed in the amniotic fluid. And a brain surgeon and a neurosurgeon did 4 hours of surgery each at the same time on that baby. And we had pictures and everything to show her and everything. So I got to see my grandbaby at 24 weeks old. And so then they put her back together after all this surgery of placing the nerves where they go, placed her back into the womb, and then my daughter carried her until 2 weeks before she was full term. Then she goes in and they do a C-section, and my grandbaby was born at that time for a second time. So that's why they call it twice born, because she was out once and then she was out again. And it was so interesting to see the medical pictures, and I kind of felt left out because they said we cannot give you pictures because you'd stand around in Walmart and show everybody the pictures of your granddaughter. And anyway, it was so sweet and so nice to see her at that stage and the care that she got and the medical care. And you say, well, look how much it cost. Well, let me tell you this. She's now 6 years old. We were invited to come to SeaWorld because that's where the doctor went to do the surgeries. There's only 5 places in America that do these surgeries. And so he's now at the Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital in Orlando. So they invited Berkeley, didn't mean to do that, invited her and her parents and grandparents to come down, and they told the story. Well, that little girl raised $2 million at lunch in Orlando, Florida. And that money was used to pay for others who can't afford to get the surgery. And so there'll be other children that will be able to benefit from this. Yes, she did. She did want that child. And she's a beautiful human being. She really is. And all of you would love her. And she just warmed your heart when you got to see her. Now, she still has spina bifida, and she still has problems. But she's as smart. I mean, she's at the top of her class on her smartness. And she's been in a couple of beauty contests. She didn't win them, but you would have known she was a runner-up anyway. And so, that's why, for me, there's not a discussion whether it's a baby or not. So just wanted to share that with you where you maybe understand where I'm coming from. And I know that where you're coming from.
Thank you, JP
have-
Dennis. I'm sorry,
have a-
you're at time.
Have a story as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for hearing my story.
JP Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank you, JP Dennis, for your story, and I appreciate you sharing that. This is, as we can tell, everybody's not here to listen about the, our environmental services, unfortunately. They're here because of this issue. This is an incredibly personal issue for so many women. This is obviously an incredibly divisive issue. There's people here on both sides of this issue, but ultimately, it's a private issue. And the Supreme Court has ruled that it's a private issue. It's between doctors and patients. It's not necessarily up to us and our personal beliefs. I've been a strong supporter of reproductive rights my whole life, and I'm going to continue to be. That's not going to change. But ultimately, we have to, think about what message does this resolution send? Are we sending a message that we're taking positive policy actions that we know through research are going to reduce the need for abortions? Or are we just trying to shame and stigmatize the 1 in 4 women who've had abortions, and we know throughout their lifetime? And even though I guarantee you, every one of us, whether you know it or not, knows someone who's had an abortion.
Most regret it.
And I want to kind of finish here. I don't want this to be used as a method of shaming and stigmatizing women who had to go through one of the most gut-wrenching and personal decisions they've ever had to make. There's cases where it would have jeopardized the life of the mother, where it would have jeopardized the life of the child, and I'm glad that you do have a grandchild. There are other medical cases where the amazing medical miracle that was accomplished could not have been accomplished, unfortunately. There's cases of incest, cases of rape, cases of both rape and incest together. And I don't want to shame and stigmatize women further who've been through that. And so I would like to see us, there's, in economics, you've heard of supply and demand. I feel like on one side of this issue has been very focused on trying to reduce access to abortion services, which is on, I guess you would call the supply side. But there's also the demand side. We know what public policies lead to reducing the need for abortion in cases besides those that I mentioned. And so there's 2 amendments I'd like to offer to this resolution. And the first amendment I would like to offer says that it is the policy of Washington County to support the following: comprehensive, age-appropriate, and medically accurate sex education, widely available access to all forms of contraception, universal health care, affordable child care support services, and a living wage. That's my motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, JP Simons and then JP Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Pro-life is a term that's been politicized and carries different meanings to different people, vilified by some and championed by others. In my opinion, my own, pro-life means more than simply being anti-abortion. It's about creating an atmosphere and climate of life in all its abundance throughout our community for everyone from the unborn to those on death's door. I see the county working to improve life on so many fronts across this spectrum. It provides assistance to programs like Returning Home, which helps inmates find gainful employment, housing, and resources to lower their odds of recidivism. Washington County studied our criminal justice system and implemented the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee to work on issues in that arena. We support the needs of our law enforcement officers to provide them with the training and equipment they need to safely and efficiently do their jobs, which keeps us all safe. We have taken the steps to directly provide rental and utility assistance for community members. Despite the most recent challenges that we heard today, I believe that we will work to continue to provide resources through the Crisis Stabilization Unit for those impacted. Washington County is committed to work towards improving the quality of life for its citizens, and this resolution, I believe, articulates where it all starts, defending life at its earliest and most vulnerable. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's a reason life is listed first, because there can be no liberty or pursuit of happiness without first the protection of the right to life.
JP Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question.
Ms. Patty, please take a vote.
Is this a vote to call the question?
Yes, ma'am.
County ordinance provides that everyone gets to speak.
Sean Simons?
I think you can call the question on the matter and end debate, but I still think you have to have public comment.
But you're going to disregard the provision in county ordinance that says non-member JPs of the committee can speak?
I'm going to follow Robert's rules.
That's,
Ms. Patty, please.
I'm talking about county ordinance that trumps Robert's rules.
Point of order, she's right.
I'll have the parliamentarian rule on that.
Your ordinance says that during discussion, that members of the committee can discuss, then non-members, then quorum court members who are not members then have the power to discuss, and then the public has the power. It also adopts Robert's rules, and so I think it's up to the chair whether or not you follow the Robert's rules or you continue to allow this.
I'll be happy to read the provision in the county ordinance for you.
Ms. Patty, please take the vote.
There shall be a
Sean
12-minute
Simons.
comment period before a vote on any proposed resolution or ordinance.
Yes. Ms. Patty,
This shall follow the discussions by the committee members and
Ms.
Robert
Patty,
Dennis.
please.
members not on the committee.
Robert Dennis?
Mr. Chair, you are not following county ordinance. You are following the county attorney who is your party chair instead.
Point of order, I'm sorry. This is a question for the county attorney. In email discussions that you and I have had before, you, and I have it in writing, that the 2016 ordinance allowing for public comment and that also allows for non-committee JP comment is not in conflict with Robert's rules.
Yes.
It is in addition to Robert's rules. This is what you have told me previously when I've raised concerns about other things. So in that case, ordinance 2016 is a supplement to Robert's rules, and therefore it's not something that we're going to be violating our own ordinance, basically, if we do this without public comment and other JP comment.
Nothing in Roberts is in conflict with allowing public comment or the committee to speak. There is nothing there. However, there is a proper valid motion to call the question, which ends debate. So we're not doing away with debate. We're saying in this particular circumstance, it ends debate. That's the chair's decision. I can't make the decision. If a member of the committee doesn't like the chair's decision, they can appeal the ruling to the full body and a vote can be taken. But this ending debate is an operation of any meeting. That's just part of the rules that we've got, and so we're not getting away
It's
from
part of Robert's rules where it
debate.
says, except
We're not-
where they are in conflict with the general laws of the county and the state.
Just one more
She's
point.
not been recognized, so
She hasn't. One more point of
anyways,
order.
this is
But
the-
debate and public comment are not the same thing.
you're right, we're not ending public comment. That's what I said. We're in debate, which is on the committee, but we're not ending public comment. That's why I said you
But
can
the
end
public
debate,
comment
but you
is limited
can't
to 12
end
minutes.
the public comment.
So we're not taking a vote on this.
Well, but
We're ending debate right now and going straight to public comment.
Okay, okay.
To silence me, the woman on the court that could actually.
Miss Patty, will
has
you
a
please
uterus.
take the roll?
You're tyrants.
You said yes. Sean Simons.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little unclear.
Just wanna
We are
speak.
going to allow public comment, is that correct?
Yes.
But
And
not
JP
me.
Madison could speak
And
as
take away,
public,
and
can
take
she
away
not?
from the public's
Yes, she
time.
can.
Well,
Do you see these people?
don't take away from their time if you don't want to. I just wanted you to have a chance to.
They're in line to
Wait, I
talk.
just wanted you to have a chance to speak, JP Madison.
All right, Miss Patty, please take the roll.
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
No.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
It
The motion
passes.
passes. So now we'll move on to public comment. And so I'll ask that we have one person who speaks on one side, and then we'll follow
That's
that
not
with
in ordinance.
someone who speaks from the other side.
Fine, show me that in ordinance.
That's not an ordinance, it's in Robert's rules. It's how it's preferred when you have an issue. And so, again,
And
it
it's
doesn't.
never been done before.
You're right, but it has been done before. It's done at planning board meetings all the time. And so that's the way Roberts prefers it, and it's not in conflict with any ordinance.
We'll have 12 minutes of public comment, 3 per individual, and I will ask that you state your name and where you're from.
Mr. Chair, you have silenced an elected official. I hope you're proud of yourself. I was going to tell the story about how my son is adopted.
It's
and this is
it's
what
time
you have
for
decided.
public comment.
You want to have me removed?
Public comment time. Thank you.
Excuse me, my fellow Americans and Arkansans and members of the Washington County Quorum
Ask
Key.
the sheriff's deputies to come back in, please.
I am a citizen, a taxpayer,
I'm going to ask that the
a medical
room.
professional.
I'm going to ask that the room be cleared and we have individuals come in and give public comment time.
I would like to make a motion from the audience to allow the JP
Wait,
to speak.
We don't make motions
I
from
wasn't in
public
line
comment
because
seat.
I was waiting to speak during the time that's given to me as an elected official. My privilege is that my citizens elected me.
You need to, I'll let you clear the room and have people come in one at a time. That's what I would do. You're not gonna do it unless you make everybody leave and have somebody come in one at a time.
We'll give this one more
Mr.
try. If we
Mr.
can't,
Chairman?
if we can't make this work, then we're going to clear the room and come in.
Mr. Chairman, is it in order to make a motion at this time to allow an extra 5 minutes for?
We haven't started public comment, so we're gonna start
Okay.
our public comment now.
Well, can I make the motion after public comment?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. I will.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and where you're from, and if you'll push the little person icon on the microphone. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Britton. I've been a citizen in Washington County for 34 years. I've had 40 years of mental health practice with my husband, who was one of the leading psychiatrists in Washington County and in the state of Arkansas. I spent 8 years as a layperson on the Arkansas State Medical Board. I served for 8 years on the Federation of State Medical Boards, representing Arkansas during that time. I was nominated by the Federation of State Medical Boards to become a lay member of the WHO. I have a little experience in dealing with abortion, the ugly side of it, and I want to say that we can be rude, we can call names. There's certain people in this room that have called me a Nazi. I've been threatened already, but let me tell you, I've been threatened by much better people. I just want to say that what you're doing is standing up for the Declaration of Independence, which people have forgotten that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we don't all give equal opportunity to life, if we don't give equal opportunity to life, there is no pursuit of happiness, and there is no liberty. And when your rights are derived from government, you lose them all. And these people need to be aware that what they're asking for is liberty to take everyone's life, because it doesn't matter. If you don't protect the unborn, what is next? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I invite someone from the opposing viewpoint to speak. Please state your name, where you're from. Push the person icon. Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Graham, and I'm from Springdale. First and foremost, this resolution is in direct violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It was the very fear of a preference of one religion over the other that brought Thomas Jefferson and James Madison to draft the Bill of Rights and cautioned against this very intersection of state and religion. They spoke vehemently against government overreach, particularly when it came to violating religious liberty. But since we know you're probably going to pass this anyway, let's talk about what pro-life actually means, because I believe you're using that term incorrectly. Section 3 of this resolution makes clear you intend to only protect children, quote, from conception until birth, end quote. So I do give you credit for finally admitting your lack of concern for children and human lives following their exit from the womb. Pro-life would mean taking meaningful actions that save lives. That's it. Continuing funding the CSU, using the CARES Act funding for its intended purpose, maternal health care and education, wearing a mask when it might protect the life of a child or an immunocompromised person or someone otherwise unable to get vaccinated, which the majority of this body couldn't be bothered to do. Providing shelter to those who are unhoused when it's 20 below outside, and getting rental assistance to folks sooner than a year and 3 months after the start of a global pandemic, some of whom were evicted over a year ago. But Washington County isn't pro-life because y'all haven't done any of those things. In fact, in the face of imminent death and endangerment to county citizens, this body deliberately turned a blind eye. And as we speak in here today, people on our side, my side of this argument, were assaulted in the parking lot. This is a resolution, which means that it's a piece of... This is a resolution, meaning it's a piece of paper with a bunch of words on it, no actual actions. As J.P. Stafford already pointed out, we don't have any abortion providers in Washington County. It holds no legal standing and serves no purpose. If your intent is to prevent any abortions, the same number of abortions will occur tomorrow. It's a waste of time, and it's the exact definition of virtue signaling that its author accused others of doing in the past. I'm almost done. Just last year, Arkansas bragged about its distinction of the most pro-life state in the U.S. It was brought up earlier, yet we're #1 in teenage pregnancies. We have the 6th highest rate of infant mortality and the 7th lowest life expectancy. As a matter of fact, we're in the bottom 10 of healthcare, education, infrastructure, economy, and more, and that's not very pro-life.
I ask that someone who is in favor come and speak now. Please state your name and where you're from. Thank you.
My name is Phil Johnson. I'm from Springdale, Arkansas. I work for a local pregnancy resource center. I work with the dads, talk with the dads. It's a place called Loving Choices. Been in business for 34 years. And we give confidential pregnancy tests, counseling, limited ultrasounds, STD testing. And, in the short time that I've been there 2 years counseling men. And it's interesting to me that, when a couple decides to have sex, then suddenly it becomes the woman's choice only. And what we've discovered when they come in is that the dad comes with them. And the interesting thing to me is when I meet with the dad, oftentimes he's excited to have a child. He's there to support. But many times she doesn't know that. And so she'll base her abortion on the dad, thinking, well, he probably just wants me to get rid of it. And oftentimes, this has happened many times with the guys I've met with, that they want the child. And so I told one guy, I said, well, have you shared that with her? And he said, well, she knows how I feel. I thought, well, I've been married 29 years, and my wife still can't read my mind, not all of it, most of it. And so, anyway, I got him with her, and he shared how he felt. And when she found that out and found out that they were going to be that she was going to have support, not that they were going to parent together, but they were going to parent independently, she decided to keep the baby. And so I guess what I want to do is I want to stand up and I want to applaud the fact that we're supporting the unheard, but we're not just supporting the unheard, we're supporting the ignored, which is that dad. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Mark Graff. I live just a couple blocks from here. I came tonight to speak in vehement opposition to this resolution, and especially Clause 2. But partly because I think this country may have heard enough about what old white guys have to say about abortion. I yield the remainder of my time to my representative, Justice of the Peace Eva Madison.
I'm going to be brief because I don't want to take away the time of the public that's here to speak. My son is adopted, and every day I am so glad for the choice that his mother made in deciding to have him and let me be his mom and let my husband be his dad. We tried for 15 years to have a child on our own, and we couldn't. But I can't imagine being in his biological mother's position, being forced to have a child. So for those of you privileged men who don't know what it's like to have a baby yourselves, I ask you, if you fully support this ordinance, what have you done to help a child in foster care? Have you adopted a child? Maybe some of you have, but I would venture a guess that not all of you have. My son means the world to me, but the decision to have a child or not to have a child is a deeply, deeply personal decision that really does affect the mother more than the father. And for 5 guys to vote to pass this on tonight, and let me just say this, If Washington County were truly pro-life, we would allow the clients of the public defenders access to their lawyers. We would find the money to keep the CSU open. We would spend the $4 million in CARES money that we're sitting on to help the unemployed, the homeless, and the hungry. We would pass a habitability ordinance to make sure that those kids, once they're born, can sleep in a house that's not going to burn down around them while they're asleep. Many of you didn't speak to pass that habitability ordinance because you said it wasn't the county's responsibility. If you were pro-life, you'd work to prevent discrimination against LGBTQ individuals and people of color. If you were truly pro-life, you would work to end the death penalty, but you're not. You're pro-birth.
Thank you, JP Madison. That's time. We have 54 seconds remaining in public comment time. Please. Please state your name and where you're from.
I am Jana Starr, and I am from Springdale, Arkansas. And my mother got pregnant when she was 16 years old, and I am so glad that she chose life. And I think everyone in here would admit they're glad their parents chose life. Well, I want to tell you about a woman that I know who has had 4 abortions. And she cried in my arms a couple of months ago after having 4 abortions. She was an actress in Hollywood. And she cried in my arms because I have 2 beautiful daughters and 2 beautiful grandchildren. And she will never be a mother, and she will never be a grandmother because she lost her ability to have children because of abortions.
Thank you, Ms. Starr.
I want to say I am pro-life, and I appreciate your being pro-life, and I
Thank you.
appreciate this resolution.
Thank you. You're at time.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Ms. Petty?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to extend public comment by another 12 minutes.
There's been a motion. Do I hear a second? Seeing none, I'll ask Ms. Patty to call the question.
Sean Simons.
I need to speak to a manager.
Yes.
Yes. Robert Dennis. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford.
No.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
This passes.
Thank you, Ms. Petty.
Government silencing the opposition. Ain't that something?
Item number 10 on the agenda is an ordinance providing for remote participation to be referred to as hybrid meetings. Quiet, please. In the meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court and its subcommittees. JP Rios Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since I've been on this court since January, there has been, for various different reasons, the CARES Act money tonight's very, I won't go into it, but the workings of the Quorum Court since the pandemic began have become a huge amount of public interest. I know that one of my fellow JPs, I don't remember who it was, said that before the pandemic you could roll a bowling ball through here and not hit anybody. That's ancient history. We during the pandemic we went to remote meetings where people could participate remotely, and what this ordinance would do is within our purview to allow the public to be able to go back to that and continue that, to be able to either show up in person or to give their comment remotely through Zoom. And so that is all this ordinance would do, would move us to a hybrid form of meetings. Us as the JPs would still have to be here in person because that's part of the state ordinance. But apparently there's nothing in the state ordinance that disallows us from allowing the public to give their comment remotely. And so that's the point of this ordinance. And so
Good. Quiet, please. Order, please. JP Rio Stafford,
and so
can you help?
I move. I move to approve this ordinance.
So there's a motion by JP Stafford, Rio Stafford, rather. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Again, we have 12 minutes, 3-minute limit per individual, and I will open the floor to the public. Ms. Koger, please state your name and where you're from.
I'm sorry, Beth Koger, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I couldn't hear what you said, but this is the final public comment at the end of the meeting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. My comment tonight has to do with something about what County Attorney Chief of Staff Brian Lester was speaking about, and it concerns the condition at the Public Defender's Office, also known as the county annex, I think. I went there on June the 2nd to deliver some paperwork for a client. That's when I saw the conditions myself. First, the elevator. As we said, it was reported broken on March the 10th, and it's still not working. But when I went upstairs, I was shocked to see that they have a huge trash can on wheels that collects water from the ceiling. The floor was wet. It was squishy when I walked on it. I saw a storage room. Most of you have seen pictures that I made that day, but I know some people haven't. In the storage room, client files had been damaged. There's mold and mildew. There's a public defender who works within 6 feet of that room. There's ceiling tiles missing. Some had fallen on desks. Some had fallen on the floor. There's waste baskets throughout the building to collect water. It's in bad shape. And I've thought about why this has bothered me so much. And I think it's because I know those public defenders personally, a lot of them, and I know how hard they work. And I know the work that they do is vital to our community. They're the difference many times whether a person goes free or whether they go to prison. And I feel like they're being disrespected, and the community is being disrespected because they've been in these conditions for such a long time. The first leak was reported in January 16th of 2020, and since then there's been 10 reports. But now there's been lots said about the insurance. The claim was filed on November 25th. I need to go to my notes just a minute. Make sure I'm right about that. It was filed on November 20th of 2020. And I know there were a lot of county buildings involved. And I've seen the estimate for repairs for the Public Defender's Office. And on June 10th, the county did get notified that the insurance estimate was here, and they got approval from the insurance company to start repairs. That was June the 10th. Now, I don't know why it hasn't been fixed. According to the estimate, it cost just over $82,000. I know the county has that much money that we could fix that building. But it's going to take a lot more now than just the roof. It's going to have the mold and mildew is going to have to be removed. There's really a bad smell throughout the building. And I just want to bring this to your attention because of county services. I ask that you take responsibility for getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Koger. Public comment. Ms. Moore.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I wanted to bring up a topic that didn't come up that I think county services should definitely be following and have some activity in, and that's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I didn't hear any updates about that tonight, but I reached out to all of you guys a week ago last Friday and gave you an update. Whenever the Fayetteville Housing Authority and the Springdale Housing Authority were each given $1.5 million, that left about $4 million that was sitting with the county. And the county said at the time publicly in this quorum courtroom that those agencies, once they had spent the majority of those funds, they should come back and ask for more. Fayetteville Housing Authority has currently gotten rid of most of those funds and had come to the county and actually was told, no, they're not going to be getting any additional funds. And Attorney Lester, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to get the record straight. But from what I understand, on March 30th, when RFP went out by the county went and hired a third party. And I alerted you guys to that, and the contract that was signed by the county to the tune of $330,000. I don't recall that came before this body in the court to appropriate those monies, and so I have a couple of concerns and just want to hear from the court whether or not they were part of that decision. If there was discussion in some place that maybe I possibly was not privy to, because that was the first that I found it as I navigated around on the county's website and stumbled upon it. When I surveyed several of the nonprofit providers, none of them were aware that this program existed and that it also could offer rent and utility assistance. So I sent an alert to you guys over a week ago asking for us to get together and talk about this, how we're going to alert the community, how we're going to alert providers, how we're going to offer more than English, because today I don't see any opportunity. It doesn't show Marshallese or Spanish or how you access that. When I called the 877 number a week and a half ago and left a message, still haven't gotten a call back from that company. I was asking, can you apply by telephone? Can you apply with paper? They said no. So there's definitely some hurdles to getting to this $4 million. I understand we've paid this company $60,000 to date, and I talked to Bobby Hill again today and confirmed so far we have not cut any money for rental assistance to any folks. And I think folks have applied and there is a process to go through, so it's possible it's just taking time. But it would be nice to hear the county talking about this publicly and alerting the community to how we access these funds, because there are a lot of folks in the community that are, thank goodness, the moratorium got extended, but unfortunately, landlords are finding other ways to throw families into the streets. Thank you.
My name is Lowell Grisham. I live in Fayetteville. I'm struck by the interest in the quorum court in religion, which is my business. And I just wanted to wonder if there's an openness to the establishment of religion in Fayetteville. I would suggest the Episcopal Church might be a place to start because we've got experience with this. We are the branch in the United States of the Church of England, that is the established Church of England. Most of the early colonists that started the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, a large percentage of them were Anglicans, Episcopalians, and the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. is our cathedral in the Diocese of Washington. So if you're interested in making religion official in this city, we'd be glad to serve. Now, if people don't like that idea, I would suggest you move back away from the area of religion and respect the non-establishment of religion and keep that wall of separation between religion and state clear. Otherwise, this has been an ugly and passionate and demoralizing night dealing with things that are religious, personal, intimate, family issues, not an issue for a quorum court, with all respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Moore. I'm a Washington County resident. I live in Fayetteville. You guys voted in favor of this supposedly pro-life referendum. I have a little story for you since I couldn't get in line because we were letting other people go first. So when my mom was in college, she was raped by a cop. Very brutally, actually. Several weeks later, she got very, very sick. She almost died. She lost a lot of weight. She was bleeding. One night she went to bed and she didn't wake up for several days. The maintenance man came in to find her. Of course, she went to the doctor after this, and the doctor told her that she was pregnant because of the man that raped her. So the doctor told her her option was she could either not get an abortion and both she and the baby would die, or she could get an abortion and she would live. My mom, now alive, she's 60 years old, bless her heart. She had me at 40. But she was in grad school to become an eye doctor. After she graduated college, she joined the Air Force. She saved multiple lives, and she saved veterans' eyesights. So I just want you to know that you voted against that. Thank you. Good night.
We have 2 minutes remaining in public comment.
I got it. Thanks. Okay. Hi. My name is Patty Johnson. I live in Fayetteville. I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Stephanie Ho, who can't be here tonight because she is ill. She is a family physician in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and she owns and operates Vector Health and Wellness, an LGBTQ inclusive primary care, sexual reproduction health, and gender-affirming clinic. She is board certified in family medicine and has been practicing in Arkansas for over 13 years. She was previously with Planned Parenthood in Fayetteville from April 2014 until 2019 of June, and she was the sole abortion provider in Northwest Arkansas. This area has been without an abortion provider for 2 years, and although she knows that facts make some of these people giddy, it's not something we as a progressive community should be proud of or complacent to accept. Women's bodies or those of any egg-producing patients are not yours to declare ownership or assign titles, nor are they yours to use as bargaining chips. For your own campaigns, no patient or population should ever be used as a prop for political gain or an issue to pander to outside interest groups or your voter base. Every single one of us in this room cares about someone who has had an abortion, whether you know it or not. In fact, Dr. Ho has probably provided those abortions to some of your loved ones, several people in this room. These are friends and family members who we have vowed to love and respect unconditionally. So attempting to pass this resolution has no effect except to shame legitimate, medically necessary, and life-saving health care, as well as to shame patients who need this care to live, survive, and flourish. We will never end abortion, but if you truly want to reduce the need for it, Dr. Ho can tell you exactly where to start. Feel free to take these notes down. First, allow science-based, age-appropriate, comprehensive, inclusive sex education in our schools. Number 2, allow unrestricted and free access to all methods of contraception, including and regardless of age, child status, or gender identity.
Thank you for your comments. Public comment is now over.
Okay. Third, guarantee at least 12 weeks of paid medical leave for parents so that they can.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.